Welcome to you all. It pleases me, as I trust it pleases you, to be here and be with you, and to be able to speak of those things that we seldom hear of in this world with any real knowledge, sincerity, or honesty. And I trust that in these 3 days, you and I together will find in you and in me a level of the human psyche which is not very commonly traversed. If there is anything that I speak of which is not made clear by me, then I will be inviting you to ask questions so that we can get around that and make everything as comprehensible as possible for you. I do not speak of anything that I do not live. That is the secret of truth in any of us. If I live it, then I can say it. If I don't live it, then I am just a drum beating in a vast universe. Let us start at the beginning, for that's what you are here for. Always for the beginning. For the beginning is in you. In you who are listening to these words. And in I who am uttering them. To listen to the truth. To be the truth, which is the whole idea of listening to the truth, is for you to be the truth that you hear. You have to listen in your own experience. This is a term that is not very widely understood, because most people listen in experience, not in their own experience, but in what they have experienced in the sense of external experience. What they've read, they listen for what they've read, what they've heard in the movies, what they've seen on the television, yes, what they've read in the newspapers. There is an area of us in which that is absorbed. And there is an area of us, of course, which copes with the daily challenges of existence, earning our living, having relationships with our mother and father, with our loved ones, and our love life generally. These are all experience. But what I'm asking you to do is to listen in your own experience. And it is up to me to make that distinction and make it clearly so that you know what you're doing and which area of your own psyche you are using or invoking. It is because people do not know the difference between experience and their own experience. They just accept it as a conglomerate, that they are confused, that they are not true to what they are. Now, Someone happened to write to me the other day a quotation from Shakespeare, because I had mentioned Shakespeare's quotation in a previous meeting or tape about the futility of existence. And here is this quotation in reference to your own experience. Shakespeare says, "This above all, to thine own self be true, and it must follow, as the night the day, thou canst not then be false to any man," let's say anyone. But Shakespeare doesn't say how you can be false, how you can be true to that in you, which is emotional, in that part, that self in you that is angry. How can you be true to something inside of you that is angry? If you are true to anger, then you have to be truly anger. If you are true to unhappiness, then you have to be unhappy. So you see, all poetry, and as magnificent as Shakespeare's poetry is in so many ways to so many of us, and demonstrates the human condition in so many wonderful ways, it's not enough. Because to thine own self be true. Well, what are we talking about here? Someone who is emotional, in a partnership, let's say, will often declare, "I tell you, this is how it is, this is the truth, and you are a so-and-so, so-and-so." Now, that person will think they are being true. But where I come from, they are only being true to their anger and their position. And this whole quotation is about being true to something else that is not yourself, that just can't be defined or described. And yet, as we proceed here, you will know in your own experience what it is. To thine own self be true, and it follows as night follows day, that you will be true, not only to every man, but to every living thing on everything, even the furniture in your house, you will be true to. You will not destroy anything needlessly, although you may have to destroy many things because you have to, not by choice, not out of anger, not out of discontent, but just because that's the way of things, that everything has to perish, has to pass away. But your good intent is to protect everything, like the flowers in your garden, the furniture in your house, your car, whatever you own. You do your best to protect, as much as it is possible in this existence, to protect anything. Now, your own experience refers to the quality of life. It doesn't refer to winning the lottery, because you could win the lottery and you could say, "I've experienced winning the lottery." And you would think perhaps that was in your own experience. Well, it is your living experience, but it's not your own experience, because your own experience is about the quality of life every moment. And winning the lottery is filled with hopes about the future. Tomorrow I'll pay off the mortgage. Tomorrow I'll do this with all this money. The only thing is that tonight you might die. So it's an experience, all right. And so most of our life is this experience. We can't deny that. For that is the very nature of existence as far as we are concerned, is that every moment is an experience. We are being bombarded by experience through our senses. Sight, hearing, heat and cold, all those things. Every moment it's there, something's coming in through our senses. But true to your own experience is not true to your senses experience, it is true to that which is behind your senses experience. And that is what you are. I'll give you an example. To love. What is it to love? Now there are many, many levels of love as far as people are concerned. Because they will say, I love you, and have an argument with that person. And that, to them, is their love, that they love the other. But is that love? To love and argue, can that be love? Well, it is clear and self-evident, isn't it, that although there is no doubt in the person who loves the other, there's no doubt about that love. We can't question that. But is it real love? And the answer where I come from is no. It's not real yet, because it has disharmony in it. And love, in your own experience, has to have no disharmony in it. In your experience. Now, have you experienced love? You see, many people have written to me and spoken to me at meetings and said, I know I have not realized or known love. I know I have not known love. Now that's a wonderful state to be able to say that, because most of the world would say, of course I know love. But I'm talking in your experience, which even though you may not, that may not be in your experience, I'm telling you it is in your experience, because the reason it's not in your experience is that you pay more attention to experience than your own experience. Your own experience applies to the quality of life. Now, people, when they have an argument with their loved one or their mother or their father, whom they love, and I don't question that they love them, such people often feel better, don't they? They feel better. They've released something. They've released some of their anger, some of their pent-up frustration on the other. And it is justifiable by the feeling in them that I feel better now. The only trouble is psychically, what you have got rid of is now in the other. For such love and hate, or love and emotion, is transmitted psychically, one to the other. And so if I am angry inside myself and discontented, I transmit or emanate something psychically to the world around me. This might not be in your experience, but if you look closely, you might hear the ring of truth in it. And to hear the ring of truth in it means there is something in you, your own experience, that knows that this is true. And so it emanates, such as if I argue in front of the children, it's only a passing moment or day or few hours, but psychically it enters the children. And they get a wrong notion of what living together is about, don't they? You don't do this to children without children absorbing the model of the parents. And we can follow this right through. Because an angry person, do you want to be with an angry person? Well, of course you don't. Of course you don't. That's silly. But are you ever the angry person? That's not so silly a question, is it? So all I'm doing is talking sense. And talking sense is the first thing towards being true to your own experience. Now, I'm not going to say that I can describe to you what your own experience is. But then the funny thing is that whatever's true in my experience is true in your experience. And whatever's true in your experience is true in everyone's experience. Isn't that remarkable? Isn't that remarkable? Because there's nothing else true. If you're emotional about something, this person over here is not emotional at all and probably says, well, what's the problem? So what's true in that experience is not true in this experience. And if you're unhappy there, this one's not unhappy here, perhaps, about the same matter. So you see, it's all a changing thing out there, backwards and forwards, and an emotional, like clouds passing over the sun, and there's a shadow comes and then it goes, and then there's another shadow over here, and that's our experience. And so we have developed a self which is based on our experience. Not be true to your own self, as Shakespeare says, because the genius that was coming through him was not saying being true to your own emotions, be true to your own resentments, be true to your own discontent. He's not saying that. You can hear that from the majesty, the sweetness of the whole statement, because you've got to get the idea of what he's saying. It's a sweet, it's a majestic statement. If I am true to myself, I will be true to all things and all men and all women. I mean, it's majestic. But I wonder how many people who love that statement by Shakespeare have ever looked at what he's saying and then gone and been angry, disheartened, unhappy, accusing and blaming others. I wonder, can you be true to that? As soon as you accuse another, you are being true to yourself, not to your own experience. But you are being true to your experience, which is your unhappy self, most of the time. But not all the time, because you are you're a remarkable something or other that has this great truth inside of you, as inside of me. But we have supplanted it, the knowledge of it, with our attachment to experience and our right to be unhappy. The whole world thinks it has a right to be unhappy, a right to be angry, a right to be discontented, a right to be frustrated with my work, frustrated with my relationship, a right to that. And the truth is, in your own experience, in my experience, that is not the truth. So in my experience, it's in your experience, it is not the truth to be unhappy. It is an imposition on the truth that you are to be unhappy. But then you're not to blame, because the whole world is unhappy most of the time, arguing, discontented, frustrated, emotional, accusing, blaming. And you've only got to read the newspapers, who are holier than everybody, blaming, accusing, stirring up, saying we were going to have the greatest recession in this country, almost equal to the recession of '89. And the Sydney Morning Herald, or one of them, says, one of the, what do they call them? Not responsible papers. They've got another word for it. Oh, no, a better word than that. Something like responsible quality paper. One of the quality papers. Australia's back to the wall. And imagine what all we people think from such a terrible statement. We're really in trouble. And so, because of the media, we stop buying. We get frightened. In our experience, not our own experience, in our experience we get frightened by such talk. And so, but despite them, it didn't happen. They're all coroning and having the time of their lives, pulling down Australia and our chances. Reporting, as they say, we only report the facts. Well, you never report the facts in a newspaper, I can tell you now. You report an opinion that you have. And a collective opinion that this is a good story. And a good story is anything that sensationalizes or draws attention to the unhappy state of existence. Every fight, new row, new threat, everything. Now we get our experience from all that stuff. And the people who write it are not responsible, or they'd all be here. If they were really responsible, and I've been around for 20 years, but they don't come, and if they did come, they would distort it and send me up, like they did once in England. Punch, the funny magazine, interviewed me. And the journalist, I said to him, every time he's speaking to me, I said, now, do you understand what I'm saying? Please question everything I'm saying if it's not true. Please question that. So he asked me questions. And I spoke to him. Now, is that true? Is that true in your experience? Yes, right. And he sent me up. So I never spoke to another mass circulation newspaper again, and I never will, including television, because they distort everything. In their best intentions, even in a quality paper, their best intentions would have to be to point out that I was a fool, that I was misleading the people, because they cannot be true to what they are, because they still have unhappiness in their life. They still get angry. They still get resentful. Now, those sort of people are in charge of where we get our information. Because everybody is like that. And it's all right. the whole world works okay, doesn't it? Few wars, a lot of violence, few drugs, lots of alcohol, and it works okay because there's a thing called life here, isn't there? There's life in our bodies. And life is the sunshine. Life is the light of our lives. But living is not the light in our lives, is it? Living is experiencing. And life is my own experience that unhappiness is my own creation. Now that might not be in your experience either. But it could be that if you have endeavoured to get rid of your unhappiness, if you have been listening to me for some time and living it, it could be that you have found that your living life has improved. That you don't get as angry as you used to. You don't get as frustrated as you used to. And as you didn't get those negative emotions in you, by a strange coincidence, your external life starts to change. And things get better. Not everything is solved, but things get better. It's amazing. That's because the whole of it is one, you see. If I emanate anger, unhappiness in all its forms, then I am going to bring that to me. And that will make me more emotional, more frustrated, more angry, because that's the law. What I give, I get. But you don't have to go around giving love to everybody, which is a silly concept anyway. You can't give love to everybody. Even Jesus got it wrong. And we all know how Jesus was the only guru that ever lived, according to the Christians. Jesus was a guru, no doubt. But he got it wrong. When he said, love thy neighbour, love everybody. Now it is impossible to love everybody, and it's impossible to love your neighbour if your neighbour is cruel to its dog or its wife or its husband or something, and beating and being violent. It is impossible to love your neighbour. So what would I have said, which I probably was there somehow or other, in the knowledge which never passes, it's not due to Barry Long. I say, to love is to hold nothing against anybody. Now that makes sense, doesn't it? Not to try like a Christian to love people and love and all this sort of stuff, where you make more problems than there were before. Because nobody wants it unless they do, and then you only satiate their emotionality. You limp before people. You give them sympathy, when the whole idea of existence is to stand straight and true, so that we can be a real man and a real woman. And not to give this idea to the children that you should love everybody, and when they go to school, they walk straight into somebody, punches them on the nose, and keeps bullying them every day. How am I going to love him, Mum? Best thing, my son, is every night endeavour to get rid of your resentment towards him and hold nothing against him. Although I do understand that there's enormous pressure in you, but endeavour not to hold anything against him, for he knows not what he does. Meaning, he is captured by frustration and unhappiness of our society, which has taught him, and the lack of love of his parents, who do not speak to him as I speak to you, have made him frustrated and unhappy, for only love, only right love, can make us strong. But it takes many years of experience. In other words, you've got to grow up through experience and through all the awfulness of bullies unkindness, and all that goes with growing up as we all have grown up. We all have to pass through this living experience, so that eventually, through the living experience, we can eventually relate to the reality of our own experience, which relates to the quality of life.